Hi, I'm Angus MacKenzie and welcome to MotorTrend's 2010 Car of the Year evaluation. We're here at the Hyundai Kia Proving Ground in Mojave, California with the 32 cars representing the 22 contenders eligible for this year's award. It will take 9 days of performance testing, proving ground trials and driving on real-world roads to narrow this field down to just one winner. We have minivans, luxury cars, performance cars, sports cars and family cars. But Car of the Year is not a comparison test. Each of the judges evaluate each contender against 6 key criteria. They are advancement in design, engineering excellence, performance of intended function, efficiency, safety and value. We've got a lot of work to do, so let's get started. Hyundai Kia Proving Ground is a 4,300 acre facility with 10 different test courses totaling 72 miles. Now we don't use all the courses, we use the few that are important to our testing. Our first stop, the Vehicle Dynamic Area. The Vehicle Dynamic Area is a 43 acre black lake, flat tarmac which we use for all our performance testing. This includes 0 to 60, standing quarter mile, 60 to 0 braking, lateral G, and of course MotorTrend's unique figure 8 test. This area gives us the baseline data which all the judges use in their vehicle evaluations. We're cruising at 120 miles an hour on the 6.4 mile high-speed loop. It's basically 2 long straights with 180 degree corners at each end. And we use this section of the facility to evaluate high-speed stability, wind noise, and also drivetrain noise at speed. This 1.25 mile stretch is called the Choppy Road, and it's aptly named. It's a replica of the 5, the 10, and the 710 freeways in Los Angeles. And we use these sections cruising at 70 miles an hour to evaluate things like ride quality and tire slap over the notoriously rough freeways. This is the 3.1 mile winding road circuit, and again it's aptly named. It twists and turns through the desert and up and over a couple of man-made hills. We use this section of the proving ground to evaluate vehicle dynamics on a road course: steering, braking, chassis balance, stability control effectiveness. All these are evaluated on this particular section. Each judge drives each contender over these components of the proving ground, making notes that will be used in the debate and discussion to narrow the field down to 10 finalists, which we'll be taking out on our road loops over the next couple of days.
It promises a lot, and it's stuff like continuing to use a 4-speed automatic.
Yeah.
And the engine, the 2.4 is what you'd expect a 2-liter to be like as far as general refinement and all. And it's like they just haven't got it all put together yet. Next generation of this vehicle, I really think, the next development could be a lookout car for some of the main players in the segment. I really do.
I was really disappointed in the Speed 3 particularly because it's such a fanboy car and I was really looking forward to driving it, but I really had issues with the amount of torque steer and didn't seem to put the power down very well. I didn't feel like 265 horses to me either. I mean, the GTI has 65 horsepower less and keeps up with it easily and feels much better balanced and puts the power down much better.
Design-wise is very interesting looking, very attractive. The interior is very attractive. The quality of materials is to me very impressive. So walking around the car, climbing into it, I'm basically impressed. Once at higher speeds, I'm a lot less impressed. The chassis, I think, has many problems, many issues that are not resolved.
Handles awesome, it's quick. I think it looks pretty sharp. Interior is much nicer, but you can't get over the bad NVH through the shifter and pedals even.
This is a sports car that looks like it's eaten all the pies. It's very fat, and particularly in this roadster form, it's got a bit of J-Lo happening at the back end there. Mercedes-Benz should be really well engineered, and I just think this car's kind of, they threw it together. It's a marketing car, not an engineering car. And I was bitterly disappointed because, I like Mercedes-Benzes, and the previous Mercedes-Benz Coupes have always been great cars. Previous E-Class Coupes, the W124, I just am disappointed in this.
BMW's new 7 Series, probably one of my least favorite cars here. This car annoys me at almost every turn, from where it is you have to grab the door to shut it, to the way the shifter works. There's just any number of things about this car that annoy me. Yes, it's pretty nice on the track, but even there, I mean, some of my colleagues were gushing over it, and I felt like it just felt big and heavy out there too. So this one did not do much for me. I think some other folks really loved it though.
Philosophically, this is the solid Mercedes again. When they sort of abandoned doing solid cars for a while, where they were all of a piece. They were like ingots. And the drive of this thing's pretty impressive, I think. The interior is nice. The premium materials, they're used well. But the wrapper, I don't know, it doesn't scream what Mercedes has been historically, about a substantial automobile that's timeless. This is not a timeless car.
This is the new Ford Taurus. It's a huge improvement over the car it just replaced, but that said, I think the car it replaced had only one place to go. And of course, this is a major minor refreshing, a lot of work done on the car, but you know, it still has that high cowl. To me, it's like crossovers are getting lower to the ground. Why do we need a sedan that's getting higher off the ground? It just rides too much like a crossover for me.
When I was driving, it reminded me a bit of, this is going way back, but in the early days of the automobile, there were cars designed for old ladies, basically. There were very vertical sort of phone booth designs with interiors that you could imagine having, you know, drapes on the windows and that sort of thing, very feminine. And this really struck me as a modern interpretation of that.
The exterior to me looks quite classy and quite upscale, and it kind of, the driving experience, it doesn't deliver.
Yeah, it's 10 pounds of refinement rattling around in that 20-pound bag. And you know, it's got an old-fashioned pull ring shifter, which I really don't like. You know, it buzzes a little more than most of them. Most of the refinement is just way down. It is an older platform underneath this design and so forth.
Why would you get this as opposed to a Town and Country or a Grand Caravan? Now, I believe Volkswagen was saying that their suspension's different, the interior is different, and the sheet metal is different. But I thought when it comes right down to it, you're driving a Town and Country with different suspension.
If you own one of these and you're driving down the street, a lot of people are going to look at you and think, that guy's dumb. He just didn't realize what he bought, that he didn't really buy a Volkswagen. And I wouldn't want that sort of feeling all the time.
$7,000 more than that Prius as it sits over there. Doesn't have lane keeping, doesn't have park assist, doesn't have all those things. You can get them for another $3,900. But you know, and as a hybrid goes, I was only able to eke this thing up to 25 miles per hour in pure EV mode. I was able to go 37 in the Prius. So I just, and then I thought the Ford Fusion hybrid was more refined and quieter than this one. So to me, I don't see what the point of this car is.
What it's very good for is an audience who commutes every day, long distances like I do, and unlike me is careful with their money because it does get excellent mileage, we know that, and its dynamics are fine on the freeway for normal commuting activities, and it has a lower price than the Prius. So if you're an accountant who isn't that interested in cars and isn't that excited about the most advanced of hybrid technology, this is a great car. Other than that, there's a lot of holes.
Well, we've left the proving ground behind and the on-the-limit driving and performance testing, and we're now out in the real world on real-world roads. And this is a very critical part of the process, because here the 10 finalists will be subjected to the sort of conditions that consumers use them in every day. So we're looking at various things. We have a city section where we have lots of stop-start motoring, lots of traffic around. So we're looking at visibility, throttle response and transmission response at light throttle openings, that sort of thing. We have some 2-lane and a canyon road, steering response, how the transmission works. All these sorts of things are important and noted by the judges. And we also have some freeway sections where we take each of the contenders out among the big trailer trucks and other traffic moving along the interstates, just as a lot of consumers will use these cars. Wind noise, tyre noise, road noise, all these things are noted. With all the testing and road loops completed, the judges gather to discuss and debate how each contender has performed against the 6 criteria.
Out of all the cars, they felt the biggest to me, on Cameron especially. I'm with Todd on the V6, I think. I actually like that more than the V8. I think sounds racier, more high tech. I like that a little better.
Feels lighter to me too. It seems a little pointier, more responsive. And I agree, Ron. I mean, I think despite whatever the scales say about the car, you feel like you're in a weightier car because you're so down low into it. Whereas something like the Mustang is much airier and lighter feeling.
There's good stuff there. We know these underpinnings shared with this global rear drive platform, Holdens and such, and we know they can really be made to run. And I just think this car's a calibration job shy of the greatness that's probably inside of it.
Just the weighting of the controls, terrific. The clarity of the steering, I think it's the best steering ever in an American car. And I could be wrong, but that's what I think. The shifting, the shifter weighting and all that sort of thing, it really does shrink around you, that car.
That's one of those cars where your adrenaline immediately picks up when you get into it. It looks the part inside. Great looking steering wheel. You start it up, it's got that V8 burble. And then as soon as you go, it feels well sorted and quick and spirited and light and lively. And I really loved it out here.
And I still struggle with the fact that car in the 21st century has a live rear axle. And what I really struggle about is that the live rear axle was done for the wrong reason. It was done to save money, not to make it a better car.
I was really down on the Genesis Coupe driving it on the track, but out here it felt like a different car. It felt light, responsive, everything the Camaro isn't. And I realized they're not exactly the same kind of car, but for a 6-cylinder performance coupe, the Genesis just felt so much more modern and fun and light and agile out on the twisty bits.
I give them credit for avoiding gimmicks. I mean, it's common that a lot of the Asian car makers, especially on their performance cars, they get very gimmicky, both in terms of design and style, and electronics and doodads inside. And I think they avoided that here, which I credit them for. I think it's a fairly clear of purpose kind of car, and they avoided the gimmicks. I was very disappointed in the turbo powertrain. It's buzzy and rough, and it doesn't feel enthusiastic. Even at freeway speeds, it kind of buzzes. There's no engine braking. I mean, I was, when you drive an engine like the 2-liter turbo in the GTI, there was just no comparison.
To me, this car says that that doesn't necessarily mean you have to change everything. You can advance, you can be evolutionary. And I know on one hand we were saying the Mustang didn't go far enough. I think the Golf is a perfect example. This generation of a car that's gone just the right distance.
For some of us who got our licenses just after the first OPEC oil embargo, the early GTIs in the 80s were already an alternative for Camaros and Firebirds and Mustangs and so on. And I think this is definitely a way to go, as a light, fast 2-liter turbo that gets great fuel mileage, but that's a blast to drive every day.
And every time you're driving it, you're like, this is just right, it's perfect. And the wheel is great, and the seats are great, and the interior is, as you say, it's refined and not overdone in any way. Then you get into the chassis and the engine, it just goes on and on. The car is just so well sorted from every corner. I couldn't find a fault with it.
Buick LaCrosse blew me away, frankly. I came out here without really any preconceived notions because I hadn't paid a whole lot of attention to it. I've seen a few of the ads and a few of the things that have been out on the car, but the forms are fresh because they kind of roll in, and it gives you a reason to have a relatively high greenhouse, and the way they've done the package on the car.
It did kind of feel like a GM parts bin special. Yeah. I saw some, Equinox and Malibu and some of those buttons, and like sort of a caddy-like, shifter. Not a lot of differentiation of what the Buick personality is. If you got below sort of the dash line, below eye level, when you start looking at it and say, this is, what is it, I don't know what I'm in anymore.
This one to me was a car with a really great personality. But it just, stuff it did in a way that you really respected, and you thought, wow, this is really good. And then you got out and walked away and looked at it.
There are so many car companies trying to say that, well, we're different from Camrys and Accords. Our midsize car is different because it's sportier, it's a sports sedan. And of course, that never proves to be true. But I think the Legacy GT at least has obviously the engine, and obviously I think the handling to make it above and beyond that mid-size pack in terms of fun car to drive.
And in terms of chassis, I was thrilled with the car. I mean, you drive the CVT with a flat 4, and that's not a bad combination. I mean, the one kind of complements the other, and You don't get some of the buzziness that you get with the other ones, and I felt, wow, this is surprising.
Terrific interpretation of the classic front-engine rear-drive roadster, and I know Kim's a huge fan of front-engine rear-drive roadsters, having owned an XK Jag.
Yep, exactly. There's a lot of romance with that layout, that design. It's such a beautiful body, inside and out. The car is gorgeous, and I enjoy driving it a great deal.
Kim, I share your enthusiasm for this car. I have to say, when Ed started talking about the Monroney pricing, I had to put my fingers in the air because I didn't want to hear it. It's crazy expensive, especially when you start putting on the options, but man, do I love looking at this car. I haven't looked at a car in years where I've thought how beautiful that is. I liked being in it. The driving position for me was great, kind of legs out and the wheel right in your hands, and nice motors both. Nice chassis, good steering. I love driving them, but then you look at what you pay to get into them.
For a car of that price, I had some issues with things like the noise from the roof when it was up. It rattles. There was exciting on the parcel shelf on one of the cars along Sand Canyon Road, and I'm thinking, I've spent all this money on this car and it's buzzing and creaking.
I've got to say, I love being in this car for two reasons. Number one, because I think the cabin it would be exemplary in any Learjet. I mean, it's a spectacular cabin, and the materials, and you feel the design and expense. The rear package is good, all that. The other reason I like being inside of it is because then I don't have to look at it. I find the styling is jarring, and to try to make a 911 into a sedan was the wrong move, and I think they just blew it.
When I was in this, I was thinking, how would it go up against a Maserati? Because both of these, the Quattroporte specifically, because both of these cars are not the most practical ones in the world in that category, but they're the ones that are supposed to excite you and really get your heart racing while you're driving it. And in all honesty, I would also rather have a Quattroporte. That one was so much more fun and exciting to me and more passionate.
I thought the car was impressive, strange looking, needs better rear seat foot room. To take advantage of all the rest, but in the steering's too light. It feels heavy, all that stuff. But that's the thing: is it isn't that much fun. I do not find it a fun car, really. And a Porsche should be fun.
A very, very pleasant surprise that they got an entire line right. I mean, from, like you mentioned, the base 4-cylinder with the 6-speed, a very fun little car. The hybrid it's like a video game. You sit there and try and get your mileage right and get the leaves to grow and maintain that in that green zone for your EV stuff, and then the V6 Sport actually for me was probably the most just kind of common. I think I had more fun driving around that 4-cylinder 6-speed and the hybrid.
The 4-cylinder was a revelation to me because I've been in this business long enough to remember when we would have written poetry about an engine like that from Ford. It's smooth, it's torquey, it revs, nice 6-speed, the chassis is really good, nicely done interior. Had a ton of fun driving it around, both the handling loop and out here on the winding road.
What's interesting about this is what it portends for the future, what the next generation Fusion is going to be like, because if Ford can carry this mindset through of what they've achieved with this car and then also wrap it around a more contemporary, a fresh, and we know Ford can do great design, exterior design. I mean, the next gen of this car could be absolute killer.
It's that I word comes into play. It's been improved. Every aspect of this product is better than the previous Prius. There are no retrograde steps in it, and there are none that are just sort of a wash. Styling is subjective, but personally I think that they've made a Prius and they've made it a new Prius. More room inside, more comfortable, quieter than the previous car. Better fuel economy, more performance, better handling. The ride, actually, I think with the 16s is better than the ride was on the last car with 16s, which got a little bit coarse. And you start stacking it up, and that's one of those things that everybody says they do when they do a new car. But it happens fewer and fewer times.
I was impressed too with the sheer relentless focus on making a Prius a better Prius. I mean, I was never a huge fan of the styling of the old one, and this one looks pretty awful on standard wheels, but on 16-inch wheels in silver, out on the road there, it looked like car. It looked like the future had arrived.
It's one of the few cars where the interior and the exterior perfectly complement themselves. When you see what it looks like on the outside, the interior is what you would expect a car like that to be like inside. And the use of things like, Tom, the grains in there are pretty unusual. The wave pattern and the perforation of the seat, they did stuff so it had, again, some visual character. And think about it, this is from the company that makes other Toyotas that are very, very much trying to go down the middle of the road and not make a statement or offend anybody. And this product just says we're going to be what we're going to be.
One judge, one vote. And with all the votes counted, it's time to reveal the winner. We have a winner, and I've got to say it's a bit of a surprise because I was expecting a very close and divided result, but we actually have an outright overall majority. So the MotorTrend 2010 Car of the Year is Ford Fusion. So I think it's a pretty good result. The Fusion is a vehicle that shows a lot of improvement, a good direction for Ford, clearly working now on new powertrains, new technologies. This is a car with great bandwidth across the range, everything from the base model, which is a steel with the 4-cylinder and 6-speed manual transmission, great driver's car. It has a very competitive hybrid at a very competitive price that's also smooth and refined to drive. And of course it's got the V6 versions with the all-wheel drive. So it's a very complete range of vehicle. It's been successfully updated and upgraded, and it's a very worthy Car of the Year. Thank you all.